Ayo, what's up and welcome. I'm the one and only West Coast King, and welcome back to the LAFC career, where today we will be getting into the off-season transfer window before hitting season number 2. I don't know if we'll get all the way up to the regular season of season 2 and play a game. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'll see how it goes. But we do have the transfer window coming up. But before we even get to that, we still haven't finished season number 1. We still have the MLS Cup final. We have to see who's going to win that. Obviously, we're not taking part in that, thanks Giles Barnes. But we do have to see who's going to win that. And before we even get to that, we have the MLS draft, which we have to take care of. And it's unfortunate that we have to do the draft before the MLS Cup final. That's not how I wanted it to go, but because of how things played out with our youth academy, which makes up our draft pool for this series, we have to do it right now before the MLS Cup final. So let's get into this thing. We got a lot to get to. Alright, so before we get into the MLS draft, let's take a look at the squad and assess our needs here. Now, one of our objectives for this season and next season was to get someone into the youth academy and then play them next year in at least 50% of the games. And I can only see 2 positions where we might be able to squeeze someone in and play them in 50% of our matches. Center back might be a spot. Briseño played well last season when I needed him to. He has a little bit of potential as well. He might get into the mid-70s, maybe 73, 74. So we might play him, or if we find a center back that looks really, really good, we might go there instead. And then right back, obviously, is one that we're going to be looking for in the draft. A lot of you guys wanted to see Beitashour gone last season. For me, he played very, very well. I'd even be willing to go into next year with him as the starting right back, but I'm not stupid. He is on the decline. He is getting up there in age. We definitely need a right back in the draft to replace him at some point, whether it's right away or at some point next season. Now, outside of center back and right back, I'd say winger is still somewhere where we're a little bit thin. I know we have Blessing down here. I'm not sure if I even want to keep Blessing in the team. He really underwhelmed and just did not impress me last season at all whatsoever. So much so I went back to Ramirez up top. Actually, Ramirez grew to a 71. I'd like to see that. Ramirez might be the starting striker next season. He actually plays very, very well in that position. And we have Perez down here, who is probably the heir apparent to one of those wing positions if we decide to go in a different direction. But I think a winger might do us well in the draft. And then a goalkeeper possibly, although for me, I still think Tyler Miller is fine in there. But if there's a goalkeeper that makes sense, maybe we go that direction, or possibly another striker. I don't know if Christian Ramirez is the answer there. He's played well, but that's really all we had to go with. We have Christian Ramirez, and Diamande will be back with us next season as well, unless I decide to get rid of him to open up an international roster spot. So there's a couple of other positions that we could have a look at, but definitely a right back and definitely a center back. All right, so here is how the draft is going to work. We have 4 rounds, 1 pick in each round, and there are going to be limitations for the quality of players that I can pick in each round. In the first round, I can literally select any player that is currently in the youth squad right now. So there are no limitations for our first round pick. In round 2, the maximum overall potential has to be under 85. So take, for instance, Brett Evans here. His maximum potential is 93. He is the best player, by the way, on the draft board. He's the best player I could possibly choose. If I don't pick him in round 1, and seeing that he's a CDM and I really don't need midfielders, I probably won't take him. So if I don't take him in round 1, I cannot take him in round 2. He would be off the board at that point. Round 2, maximum possible potential has to be under 85. Then in rounds 3 and 4, the maximum possible potential has to be 80 or below. So take, for instance, Eric Wood. His maximum possible potential is 82. I could take him in round 2. If I don't take him before round 2, then he would be off the board. I can't take him in rounds 3 and 4. The maximum possible potential has to be under 80 for the last 2 rounds. So just before we get this thing kicked off, let's go ahead and meet our potential draftees. Let's go through the draft board here and see who we have. So getting things kicked off, Brett Evans, a center defensive mid. Like I said, he's the best player on the board. You'll see that. 87 to 93 potential, although I don't think I need a center mid, so I'm not sure I'm going to actually go with this guy, even though he does look phenomenal as a center mid prospect. Left back, Eric Woods, probably the best fullback on the draft board. He's 6 foot, 76 to 82 potential. I have to take him in at least the second round, though, so we'll have to see how things work out. Center attacking mid, Brett Banks. He'd be a 3rd or 4th round prospect. Again, center mids or center attacking mids. Not sure I need to go that route in this draft. Alexander Park, a left mid. He'd be a 3rd or 4th round draft pick. Evan Evans is a decent winger prospect. He'd be at least a 2nd round pick, though, with 84 maximum possible potential. Goalkeeper Lucas Henry would also be at least a 2nd round pick, but he's 6'5", American. Looks like a really, really good goalkeeper if we were looking to go that route in this draft. Again, not sure I'm looking to get a goalkeeper to replace Tyler Miller, but if I was, he wouldn't be a bad option. Left back, Reese Mathis would be a 3rd or 4th round selection. 6'4", though. Maybe I could play him at center back even. He might have a little bit of versatility there. Cam Josh Tremblay would be at least a 2nd round pick. And again, don't know if I want to go in the center mid route for this draft. Center back Andrew Michaels looks really, really good. He'd be at least a 2nd round pick. He has 85 maximum possible potential, so he would actually be a 2nd rounder if I wanted to go that route. Definitely the best defender available in this draft. Enrique Vera, right mid, he'd be a 3rd or 4th round pick, and he looks like a decent one for a later draft pick. Valero Dominguez is the only striker I found the entire season. He'd be at least a 2nd round draft pick, and I don't know if I want to go that high for a striker. I don't think it's a pressing need on this team, but he does look like a decent option for us coming out of Mexico. Anthony Park, the 2nd Park on this list, and the only right back that I was able to find this season. He's 6'2". He's a bit tall for a right back in my opinion, but he'd only be a 3rd or 4th round pick, so I could pick one later in the draft and go with Park if I wanted to. Julio Fuentes is a really decent winger option. I like his speed already. Looks like a good player, but he would be a 2nd round draft pick at least. We have another Cam, Lucio Ortiz, 71 to 83. Decent athleticism, though. He might be able to go as a winger, but again, he'd be another 2nd round draft pick. I was having issues finding players that were under 80 maximum potential. As you can see, they're all kind of in the low 80s. It was a bit of a struggle, so, you know, our options are limited later in the draft. And then the last player here is George Campbell, the best goalkeeping prospect that I could find, coming out of Canada, 6'3", 78 to 84 maximum potential. And so the MLS draft is now officially underway, and we have our first pick here in round 1. The only player that I have to choose in round 1 if I want him is Brett Evans. He's the only player that would qualify as only a 1st round pick. And I'm looking at him. Honestly, he's probably not a center defensive mid. He's probably more of either a center mid or a center attacking mid even. And I just don't need him. I want him. He looks amazing. But I have Lee Nguyen, who's played very, very well. And if we decided to go in a different direction away from Lee Nguyen, we have Julian Green, who's played fantastic in that position as well. I just don't need Brett Evans as much as I would love him. If I got him, it would just be straight talent pick, and I think we need other things. So the 2nd best player on the draft board, according to maximum possible potential, would be Andrew Michaels, and he plays center back. It's a position we need, and Andrew Michaels is going to be our 1st round pick in the MLS draft. So on to round number 2 now, and this player has to have 85 potential or less, but really what we're looking at is players between 80 and 85 maximum potential. Anyone 80 or under I can get in rounds 3 and 4. So we won't look at them. Let's look at that 80 to 85 range right now. Obviously, Brett Evans is too good. Can't get him in round number 2 now. We have Eric Wood, who falls in that range. Who else we have? Evan Evans, great name. Decent winger as well. Lucas Henry, a goalkeeper here. Josh Tremblay, again, center attacking mid, though. Probably won't go that route. Valero Dominguez, a striker. Julio Fuentes, a winger. Lucio Ortiz, who could maybe play on the wing. I'm not sure. And then we have George Campbell, probably the best goalkeeping option. And I think this one comes down to, with the players we have to choose from, do we want to look at maybe replacing Ty Miller and go for George Campbell? Or do we want to go for a winger and possibly either Julio Fuentes or Evan Evans, the American? And the more I think about what we have in the team, especially at the winger position, what we have is hybrid players. Diego Rossi is a winger, but he can also play striker. Vela, same thing. Latif Blessing, same thing. What I think that we're really, really missing, and it's kind of evident in our playmaking ability or lack thereof, is just an out and out winger. Somebody that's going to blast up the wing with great speed and just create opportunities. Not so much goal scoring threats on the wing, but just a natural winger. Evan Evans, I think, is more of a hybrid player. I think at 5'11", not quite the speed of a winger. He probably would transition more like a striker, more like a Diego Rossi or a Carlos Vela. I think Julio Fuentes, with that speed, I think that he's going to be the natural out-and-out winger that we've been missing. He also has potential to possibly be a great player in this league. So I think with the second round pick, I like Evan Evans. I like his name a lot. But I think Julio Fuentes could be the player that we're missing in this team, and he's going to be our second round pick. So on to rounds 3 and 4 now. I have 2 picks left. I can take anyone now left on the draft board. We have Brett Banks, Alexander Park, Reese Mathis, Enrique Vera, and Anthony Park. Let's be honest, none of these round 3 and 4 guys look all that impressive. Honestly, this is probably a very weak round 3 and 4 draft class. Hopefully next year's will be better, but the best player left on the board is Enrique Vera. I mean, look at who we have left. Brett Banks is a cam. I don't need one. I passed on Brett Evans because I didn't need one. By the way, we'll talk about him in just a second. Alexander Park is another winger. I'd rather take Enrique Vera, and Mathis just looks kind of trash. So Enrique Vera, even though I just took a winger, he's the best player left, and he's the only one that it doesn't absolutely suck. So he's going to be our third round pick. And with the fourth and final pick of this draft, we needed a right back. It's not great, but Anthony Park is it. To be fair, at 58 overall, he has the highest overall out of everyone in this draft class. His potential just isn't very good. And he's 6'2", don't particularly like that. So we'll bring him in. We'll give him some training. Beta Shore will probably still be the starter going into next season. But maybe Anthony Park might develop into something decent. So we'll take him with our fourth round pick, and we'll see how it goes. So that concludes the MLS draft here for season number 1. And here we still have Brett Evans sitting in the youth academy. And quite honestly, the reason for that is just freaking look at him. He might be the best American player I've ever found. I just couldn't bring myself to delete him when I was deleting the rest of the players. He's just so freaking good. And then I got to thinking, if I do just delete them out of the youth academy like I did for everyone else, they're gone forever. They're just deleted. They don't go to another team. They don't stay in the game. They're just gone. And instead of doing that, what I should be doing is holding off until the end of the draft, like right now, promoting them to the senior team, and then releasing them from there, because at that point, they become free agents. They can go wherever they want to go. But the most important thing is they stay in the game, and then at some point in the future, if we so desire, we could seek them out and try to bring them into our team at a later date. So that's what I'm going to do with Brett Evans. Hopefully, when he becomes a free agent, he goes somewhere else in MLS. We don't control that though, and I'm not going to try to, promote him and then try to trade him to another team. That's too complicated. I'm going to release him. He can stay in the game, and then if we want to try to get him in the future, we'll have to pay a lot for him, but we at least have that option. So that's what I'm going to do with some of the better players in the future that we don't draft in the MLS draft. And just to confirm it, here he is, Brett Evans. The more I think about it, the more I wish I would have drafted him in the first round. I could have gotten Andrew Michaels in the second round, but it's too late for that. I made a mistake there. But Brett Evans is going to be released, and there he is, out of the team. Ooh, did I make a mistake? That might be the best American player ever, and I didn't draft him. What was I doing? What did I just do? And while we're here, might as well take a look at our actual draft picks, at least their skill moves and weak foot. With Anthony Park, our fourth round pick, 2-star skills, not worried about that as a right back, but 5-star weak foot, that's actually not bad. It's rather impressive, actually. Our third round pick, Enrique Vera, is a 3-star player, so I'm pleasantly surprised by that. I was a little worried he was going to be like 2-star, 1-star or something like that, and that would have been an absolute disaster. But again, another decent turnout for skill moves and weak foot from our third and fourth round draft picks. And then we have Julio Fuentes, our second round pick, and I thought was going to be a superstar winger on the team, but he has a 1-star weak foot. Yeah, that's unfortunate, man. He looks really good. Other than that, I mean, speed looks good. Technical abilities are actually developing quite nicely. But the 1-star weak foot, I don't know if I can use anyone, or much less a winger, that has a 1-star weak foot. And as for Andrew Michaels, our first round pick, he's also the lowest rated out of all of our draft picks to start off with. He has a 3-star weak foot, which is nice for a center back. He is only 6 feet tall, which isn't great for a center back, but I see he also can play right back. His speed is actually better than Anthony Park's. He's shorter and more agile than Park. He might actually be the right back that I was looking for. I just didn't know he could play there. So Park at 6'2" has decent strength. He might end up being a center back, and Michaels might end up being a right back. I'm going to train them both in defense, obviously, but considering that Michaels, his best statistic right now is his passing, he might actually play right back for us. So we have one more thing to take care of before we move into season number 2. And honestly, with the way this episode has gone, we might only do the MLS draft and take a look at what happened in the playoffs here. Yeah, we have to see who won the MLS Cup final. And I got a comment last episode. I totally forgot. I didn't show you what actually happened in the conference final and thing like that. So let's start with the semifinal where we got knocked out. We have NYCFC beat Atlanta 4-1 on aggregate, a bit of a whooping there, a bit of a surprise as well. New York Red Bulls took care of Toronto 2-1 on aggregate. Seattle knocked out Houston 3-2, and we lost to Giles Barnes. In the conference finals, a big derby, NYCFC and New York Red Bulls, with NYCFC knocking out the Supporter Shield winners 3-1 on aggregate. And then Seattle, they kind of avenged me a little bit there. They beat Colorado 2-0 to move on to the final. And in the final between Seattle and NYCFC, it is Seattle for the second time in 3 years taking home that MLS Cup trophy. That means they've been to the final 3 years in a row and won it twice. They have a bit of a dynasty brewing in the Pacific Northwest. I'm trying to say this without a smile on my face. I know this is an LAFC career, but I'm from Seattle. I'm not mad that they won if it wasn't us. You know what I'm saying? But we definitely know who we're going after, who we're chasing right now. The West runs through Seattle, and right now the MLS Cup runs through Seattle. So right now I'm going through, before we get to January, doing the training and things like that, and I was looking at who I wanted to train, specifically our new drafted players. I'm giving some training to the 2 defenders that we took, and then I started looking at the wingers here, and I noticed that Julio Fuentes does not have the promising player icon like Blessing does and Rossi does there above their age. That means that Julio Fuentes, our second round draft pick, he doesn't even have 76 potential. That is incredibly unfortunate. That is the epitome of a draft bust right there. That also means that Enrique Vera, I'm glad we drafted him. They probably have about the same potential. And Enrique Vera has a 3-star weak foot and 3-star skills, and he's better right now. I'm probably going to start training Enrique Vera, and we're just going to forget about Julio Fuentes. He probably would still be a good MLS player, but without the 80-plus potential like I thought he had, there's no reason to give him training at this point. Not when we have Enrique Vera as well. He also obviously doesn't have that tick mark, and I knew he wouldn't, but yeah, I can't believe what a draft bust Julio Fuentes has turned out to be. I should have taken Brett Evans in the first round. What the hell was I doing? And before we finish season number 1, I thought we could take a look at who took home the individual honors. Golden Boot goes to Nacho Piatti of Montreal. 21 goals in 34 appearances, not half bad. David Villa and Raul Ruidiaz, 2 players that faced off in the MLS Cup final this season. They both scored 20 apiece for their clubs. Joseph Martinez, 19. BWP, 15. Ibra and Carlos Vela with 14. We also had Christian Ramirez on there with 13 goals. Not half bad, and that's kind of why I want to go with Christian Ramirez at striker next season. Just give him the role from the start. Let him play up there and let him do his thing, because when he played, he actually wasn't bad, and he won Player of the Month for the month of November. Not sure how Giles Barnes didn't win that award, but it went to Christian Ramirez nonetheless. The assists in the league was the top man was BWP with 14, Kamara, Giovinco, and Horta with 10, and Vela and Rossi for us also had 9, and Lee Win also had 7. So assists, playmaking wise, wasn't that bad. We just didn't have one guy scoring all the goals for us like a couple of the other teams did. And that is actually where we're going to end the episode for today. We're not actually going to get into Season 2 and the transfer window. I'll get a little bit of feedback from you guys about how you think we should address some certain areas and things like that. But the good news is, and I was actually a little bit worried about this, giving our manager rating at 63. We're not fired. It wasn't a great rave review from the board of directors, but they're giving us a second chance, which means we have a Season 2 with LAFC. They said they were hoping for a stronger commitment and better results from you. That's like when your parents say they're not mad, they're just disappointed. That just hurts, doesn't it? I mean, fucking Giles Barnes. All right, so before we wrap this thing up, here is a look at the team heading into season number 2. Just real quick though, to take a look at the reserves, we did get a couple of pre-contract players in Trejo and Robinson. In case you forgot, we got them on pre-contract. Just some squad players to help fill out the team a little bit. So that is what the team is looking like right now. And I will tell you, we got a bit of a transfer budget increase from last season. We actually have $41 million in the transfer budget. Imagine what it would be if we had won MLS Cup last season. We'd probably have like 70 or 80 million. But we have 41 million right now. We already have our 3 designated players in Vela, Horta, and Rossi. But hear me out. Hypothetically, what if we sold Rossi? And I honestly, I really wanted him to work in this team. And I've given him every opportunity to succeed. I've played him at winger. I've played him at striker. And both times, it isn't working with Diego Rossi. I've tried so hard, but I feel like we could do better there, especially if we had a designated player role. We could get an upgrade. And here are the 2 routes that we could take. We could sell Diego Rossi and promote Joshua Perez from the bench to the starting wing position and go for a new designated player striker. As much as I like Christian Ramirez, we might be able to do better in that position. Or we just go for an out-and-out replacement as a designated player for Diego Rossi. So let me know what you guys think. Give me some player suggestions down in the comment below. If I see a name that really tickles my fancy, I might just pull the trigger on it and go for a new designated player. So the rest of the team, pretty much set. Midfield's not changing, and not that I can tell. And then the defense, we have some new pieces, but for now, I think that's what we're going to go with Moutinho, Briseño, Zimmerman, and Beitashour, and Tyler Miller is still the goalkeeper. So that now is a wrap on season number 1, and that is where we're going to end this episode. There's a lot of talking and a lot of stuff going on. So next time out, we'll get into the transfer window, and we might be getting a new designated player. We'll have to see what happens. So that's it for this one. If you did enjoy it and you're looking forward to season number 2, make sure to let me know by leaving a like below. Subscribe if you're new. Make sure to leave me comments for players you think we should bring in. And I will see you when we start season 2 with LAFC. See you.